Freedom fighter and struggle icon Herman Andimba Toivo will be honored with a memorial service at the Nelson Mandela Foundation in Johannesburg this evening. The 93-year-old former Robben Island prisoner died in Windhoek last week, Friday. Toivo was one of 36 Namibians arrested by the South African apartheid government in 1966 on terrorism charges. Toivo, as he was affectionately known, was the co-founder of the Southwest African People's Organization, as well as the founder of the Ovambo People's Organization in 1959. Toivo fought for freedom in Namibia and here in South Africa, and he was imprisoned in Robben Island between 1968 and 1984. Communications Minister Ayanda Dlodlo will represent the South African government at his funeral. Toivo will be laid to rest on Saturday at the Heroes Acre in Windhoek in Namibia. President Jacob Zuma has expressed his shock and sadness on the passing of the struggle icon. All right, well, let's cross live to our reporter, Criselda Lewis, who is at the memorial service for the late struggle icon at the Nelson Mandela Foundation out in Sandton. A very good afternoon to you, Criselda. Do tell us, what can we expect? Who will be attending this big memorial service for the fallen icon?
Well, Alicia, quite fitting that the Nelson Mandela Foundation, together with the ex-political prisoners from Robben Island Association, will be honouring this Namibian struggle stalwart, Toivo. Here at the Nelson Mandela Foundation, we're expecting this memorial service to kick-start at about 6 o'clock. You can see this exhibition that has been put up here of many of the struggle stalwarts who have also played their part in the liberation struggle, fighting together with MK soldiers in Namibia for the liberation in South Africa. And of course, as you did mention there, of course, he was the co-founder of SWAPO in Namibia as well. And if you look at the history of the man that we're talking about at the moment, you're looking at someone who fought for liberation in South Africa as well as in Namibia. If you look at in the 1950s, when he left Namibia to come to South Africa, he joined quite a number of struggle formations trying to establish how perhaps they could assist South Africa on its journey to freedom. And I think where you really saw him get involved in politics was when he was working in the mines. And it's in the mines at the time where he really saw firsthand the struggles of black miners and ordinary black people in South Africa under the gruesomeness of the apartheid struggle here in South Africa. And you recall, of course, during the time that, the apartheid forces in South Africa were controlling Southwest Africa, which became then Namibia after independence. That's when he was jailed for 16 years on Robben Island together with former President Nelson Mandela. South Africa has also paid its tribute, of course, to Toivo. He was, of course, bestowed with the Order of Companions of O.R. Tambo for his friendship to South Africa. South Africa, of course, also indicating that it will send the Communications Minister, Ayanda Dlodlo, to represent the government to honour this struggle stalwart for his friendship to South Africa and the role that he played in assisting South Africa towards the attainment of that democracy. He was also banished, just to give you a bit more there, from South Africa. Recall, of course, when I did indicate that it was when he worked in the mines at the time where he saw the struggle of black people in this country together with the struggle of miners in South Africa, those who were working in the gold mines in South Africa. He was banished from this country as a result of, they said that he had been smuggling some tapes to the United Nations to show the plight of black miners in South Africa as well as its people. Let's join now Mpho Masemola, who is the National Secretary of the Ex-Political Prisoners Association. Tate Masemola, thank you very much for your time this evening. Arriving on Robben Island in 1968, a clear demonstration that South Africa's freedom was not attained by just South Africans fighting to enjoy this democracy, but many others, of course.
Yes, of course. Comrade Toivo, firstly, actually would like to, convey our deepest condolences to the family and of Comrade Toivo and the people of Namibia, SWAPO, and all the revolutionary forces in Namibia. And when Comrade Toivo was sentenced to 20 years in 1968, because he was charged with terrorism, it was because of his revolutionary activities here in South Africa and also in Namibia. Remember, the SWAPO forces, liberation forces, and the MPLA, together with MK, fought together as a collective, as a revolutionary force to push away the apartheid security forces. So Comrade Toivo, as he was a founder, member of SWAPO, took part in a lot of operations. And he was also doing his political work inside the country. He was staying in Cape Town. And many people did not know that Toivo joined the African, the branch of the ANC in 1962. Although the ANC was banned, he was working underground with comrades like Albisex and many comrades within the trade union movement, as he worked in the mines and also doing his political work. He was a political commissar. Yes. He was also a commander of SWAPO, serving in the High Command.
I want to get to the section that he was staying in on Robben Island. You were in the youth wing. He was in the area where you had the Rivonia trialists as well. The demonstration that Toivo had for not just the liberation in South Africa, but on other parts of the continent as well, do you think signified a time where it was clear that South Africa, you had the apartheid forces in South Africa controlling what was then Southwest Africa, a clear demonstration of South Africa and its freedom, and so many others on the continent who were involved in it?
Yeah, actually, the Namibian comrades, they were almost about 34 in Robben Island. They were staying at the D section. And there's one important fact that I would like to highlight, that they did not recognize the South African jurisdiction. And also they refused to recognize the judge in the trial, even if they were sentenced. Even in Robben Island, it became very hard for the correctional services to give instructions to them, because they did not recognize any South African law, because they said they were tried by the apartheid law, and of which it was racist, and it was not. They were not tried under a democratic system. That is why Comrade Toivo was staying at the B section. He was quite militant. And I remember in most of his stories, his life in prison, when Madiba has to read the news clippings, because around Robben Island, each and every section, we will analyze each and every clip of the news, each and every sentence, and during the political education classes, and the information that we get from the ANC in exile, and also the information that we got from the mass democratic movement inside the country. Comrade Toivo was very white militant. It did not want anything to do with, especially to sign any document that comes from the white people, the white warders. If he's been called, Comrade Toivo, you must sign here that you'll be going to hospital, he will refuse to do that, even if he was sick, because there was a time that he wrote a series of demands in the early 70s that they wanted. One of the demands was that they wanted to serve their sentences in Namibia. In Namibia, yes. Yes, unfortunately, the Minister of Police during that time, he was refused that permission. But he took part in the underground cells in Robben Island, because we were using the underground cells in each and every section to distribute political material and also to liaise with the underground outside.
Mr. Masemola, unfortunately, that's all we have time for at this stage. We'll certainly bring you live coverage of that memorial service, which will be taking place here at the Nelson Mandela Foundation. Mpho Masemola there from the Ex-Political Prisoners Association, of course, giving us some insight there into the man who is being honored here today. SABC News will be in Namibia as well, and will bring you live proceedings from the memorial service as well as the funeral. But here at the Nelson Mandela Foundation, we will also bring you the memorial service live live. We will have the Namibian ambassador, who we're expecting to give remarks here as well. The former Deputy President of South Africa, Kgalema Motlanthe, as well, will give the main address here this evening. And certainly the man who is being celebrated here today is not just someone who was concerned about apartheid in South Africa, concerned about the penetration of a brutal system in Namibia as well, having spent 16 years on Robben Island as well, together with many other freedom fighters who were fighting against a very brutal regime. We'll bring you all of that live here on SABC News.
So much to our reporter there at the Nelson Mandela Foundation out in Houghton, Griselda Lewis, and she was joined by Mr. Mpho Masemola to talk about what a hero the later struggle stalwart was, and some of the things that we can expect, of course, as they celebrate his life later on. And of course, SABC News will be carrying that live, as we've just heard from Griselda.